Welcome to Strong Legends, daily sci-fi stories that fuel your mind. Subscribe and join the legend.
The shuttle's ramp hissed open, disgorging a wave of heated, dust-laden air that shimmered under Apex's twin suns. Captain Arya Vale stood at the threshold, her exosuit's magnetic stabilizers humming softly as they locked to the shuttle's metal floor. Each breath through her helmet's filtration system carried a trace of iron tang, an ominous promise of the territory's volatile ecology. Before her stretched the red expanse, jagged rock spires, roiling dust devils, and barren, plains pockmarked by ancient sinkholes. A low rumble echoed from beneath her boots, as if the planet itself exhaled in warning. Yet Arya's heart raced, not with fear, but exhilaration. The Apex territory had been labeled a death trap since humans first mapped its ferromagnetic anomalies decades ago, and every attempt to colonize or even survey it had ended in catastrophe, but she had spent her life studying marginal worlds and pushing them past their limits. Here, at the edge of oblivion, she felt most alive. Lieutenant Roshan's voice crackled in her ear. "Sensors are stable, Captain. Electromagnetic variance is within predicted parameters, so far." He hovered near the shuttle's command console, checking readings on a holo display. The cobalt glow cast eerie patterns across his features. Arya tapped the side of her helmet to activate her visor overlay. A cascade of diagnostic readouts scrolled down the tinted lens: atmospheric composition, seismic tremors, solar flux. The numbers danced alarmingly but remained just inside her suit's safe thresholds. "Good," she said. "Deploy the Vanguard probes. Let's map the perimeter before the pilot hauls us out of here." Roshan nodded and pressed a sequence on the console. Outside, 4 spherical probes shot forward on magnetized treads, plunging into the onyx dust. Each probe pinged back data on air toxicity, radiation hotspots, and subterranean vibrations. Arya studied the temperature map that bloomed on her HUD, ranging from bone-chilling cold to furnace-like heat within a few dozen meters. "Sector Delta shows an ion storm pocket forming," Roshan reported. "We've got maybe 10 minutes before conditions spike." Arya exhaled a plume of recycled air. Time was short, but her mission demanded urgency. "We're not here for sightseeing. These readings could change the way terraforming algorithms are calibrated on fringe worlds. It'll be worth the risk." With deliberate calm, she stepped off the ramp and onto the cracked ground. The exosuit's stabilizers whirred as they compensated for the uneven terrain. Each footfall left a print of smoldering dust that hissed as it cooled. Around her, the ochre sky fractured with streaks of violet lightning, silent, ethereal arcs that danced across the horizon before vanishing into the clouds. "Contact," Roshan alerted, pointing toward a cluster of jagged boulders. The probe's schematics overlay the real world, marking a thermal vent hidden among the stones. A thin plume of silver vapor curled upward, hot enough to forge crystalline silica, toxic enough to kill unprotected life in seconds. Arya knelt to inspect the vent, sliding a geochemical sampler from her belt. She plunged it into the vapor plume. Miniature jets on the sampler flared to neutralize the acid sulfur. A soft chime indicated the sample was secured. "This gas mix could be refined into fuel catalysts," she murmured. "Mark it for extraction." Suddenly, the ground trembled violently. One of the dust devils charged past, a towering funnel of ochre grit that swallowed the probes in its maw. The probe's treads screeched under magnetic drag before they vanished into the whirlwind. Alarms sounded inside the shuttle. "Get back here," the pilot's voice bellowed through the comm. "Storm's too close." Arya glanced at the swirling tempest, then at the retreating shuttle. Her mind raced through protocols. If she stayed, the camp's future depended on the data she carried. If she abandoned the probes, weeks of delicate calibration would be lost. She tapped her wrist console. "Trigger remote beacon, I'll be there in 3. Roshan frowned. "Captain, do it," she snapped, already sprinting toward the vent. The exosuit's servos amplified her stride, propelling her across the shifting sands. The wind whipped around her, tearing at her suit's stabilizer flanges. Her knuckles whitened on the sampler as she dashed a final few meters, slamming a magnetic clamp onto the vent's outer ridge. The sampler stowed itself within her armored gauntlet. A deafening roar filled her ears as the dust devil bore down. She felt its pull on her suit's exomotors, tugging her toward its core. Still, she pressed on. One more step, one more command to secure the data. Finally, she triggered the beacon. A red flare burst in the sky, guiding the shuttle's auto-navigation. Moments later, Roshan's worried voice crackled. Beacon confirmed. Shuttle inbound. Brace for turbulence. Arya released the clamp and staggered backward just as the shuttle's weightless parachute flared overhead. She raised her hand in a weary salute. "Never count humans out of the running," she panted. "We adapt." As the shuttle's ramp closed behind her, she allowed herself a small grin. Sparks flickered across the viewport as the dust devil raged outside. But inside the cabin, Arya Vale already imagined the foundations of her future camp. Domes braced against the storms, algae farms flourishing in sealed terraces, and the first thin shoots of moss pushing through red sand. No human had survived Apex before, but she would make them all survivors yet. The shuttle's engines faded into the distance, leaving behind a low hum that pulsed in Arya Vale's ears. Dawn's pale light revealed the first outlines of the camp. 4 geodesic domes arranged around a central command hub, all anchored to the ground by lengths of braided steel cable. Terraforming pods, compact cylindrical machines no larger than a cargo crate, vented faint puffs of conditioned air, fostering tiny patches of specially engineered moss wherever they landed. Arya surveyed the scene from the ridge above. Her exosuit's helmet retracted now that the portable atmosphere scrubbers had stabilized the bubble. Below, the crew moved with urgent precision. Engineer Sato calibrating the self-healing alloy plating on Dome 2. Xenobiologist Dr. May adjusting nutrient feeds in the hydroponic bays, and Lieutenant Roshan scanning the surrounding perimeter for seismic anomalies. "Commander Vale," came Dr. May's voice over the comm, "the moss is taking hold faster than we predicted. Growth rate is 20% above baseline in sheltered areas." Arya allowed herself a nod of approval. "Good. Keep those numbers coming. We need every data point to optimize the blankets." She tapped her wrist console and brought up the site map. "I want soil probes extending at least 50 meters out in all directions. Let's chart the rich pockets beneath the surface before we expand." Moments later, a series of automated drill rigs trundled away from the domes, their auger heads biting into the rusty earth. Arya joined Sato on the scaffold of Dome 2, where he was smoothing a fresh seam of composite plating. The alloy was infused with microcapsules that would seal cracks within seconds, but only if they were primed correctly. "Your capsules are underspent," Arya observed, pointing at a faint jagged hairline across the panel. Sato swore softly. "Damn cold snap last night slowed the reaction. I'll boost the thermal matrix." He opened a maintenance bay, revealing a web of glowing conduits. "Wish we had more time for testing." Arya placed a hand on his shoulder. "We'll get it. Priority 1 is shelter integrity. Without it, this whole operation vaporizes in the next ion storm." A distant crackle of static heralded a new alert. A cluster of ground sensors had flagged movement, possibly a breach. Arya and Sato raced down to the command hub, where Roshan was already at the holotable. "Sector Beta. Seismic spike followed by rapid heat signature," Roshan reported. He overlaid the sensor's mesh on the holomap, a red dot creeping toward the camp's perimeter. "Scan frequency highest?" Arya asked. "Set to 3-second intervals. Looks like fauna." Roshan's brow furrowed. "Biosignatures. Match those crustaceans we sampled. They're trying to take the nutrient pods." Arya frowned. The crustaceans, armored lance-tipped hunters, had already chewed through 2 trial enclosures. If they breached the hydroponics dome, weeks of food research would be lost. She sealed the holotable and addressed the team through the central comm. "All hands defensive grid online. Deploy stasis nets and stun fields around the exo-agri modules. Keep them contained, not exterminated. We need live specimens." Within minutes, a halo of pale blue energy rippled around Dome 4. A dozen crustaceans lunged against the barrier, Pincers clicking, claws sparking off the energy field. Arya watched, her jaw set. "They adapt fast," she muttered. "They learn from each attempt," Roshan confirmed. "But the field is holding, for now." Arya turned back to the expansion plan pulsing on her visor. "Once we integrate the crystalline spire sensor array, we'll get predictive alerts for their breeding cycles. Then we can build a long-term enclosure in Sector Gamma." She pulled her hood up as a wind gust kicked up red dust. "Let's keep moving. Foundations won't lay themselves." By midday, the first terrace had been graded into the hillside, a flat, reinforced platform fit for the next habitat dome. Transport drones ferried bulk materials up the slope, while mobile solar panels tracked the sun's arcs. Arya stood at the terrace's lip overlooking the fledgling outpost. The twin moons would rise soon, and with them another magnetostorm. But tonight, she thought, they had given the apex territory something it had never seen before. Structure, purpose, and a promise. Humans were not just visitors here, they were builders. And come storm or creature, they would endure. The twin moons had barely crested the jagged horizon when warning klaxons shattered the camp's restless calm. Arya Vale snapped awake in the command dome and snatched her helmet from its rack. A pulsing red icon blinked on the holomap, a magnetostorm. The size of a continent was bearing down on the apex territory, fed by a rare alignment of solar flares and the planet's own ferromagnetic core. Lieutenant Roshan's voice was tight. "Stormfront will hit here in 15 minutes. We've never seen one this intense." Arya slid into her exosuit and keyed her comm. "All hands to stations. Activate storm shield generators at maximum output. Divert auxiliary power from non-essential systems, hydroponics, research modules, anything we can spare." Outside, the camp's energy pylons hummed as power was rerouted into the 4 towering coils surrounding the habitat domes. A translucent bubble of electromagnetic force flickered into life, bending the first arcs of violet lightning harmlessly around the perimeter. Engineer Sato ran beside Arya to the secondary generator. Sparks danced across open conduits as he rammed a plasma fuse into place. "This baby's pushing 10 times its rated output," he muttered through clenched teeth. Arya kept her gaze, fixed on the storm's edge where corrosive rain clouds pulsed with angry light. "Reinforce the shielding mesh on Dome 2 and 3. If the shields cut out, we go down in seconds." Roshan's team sprayed self-sealing polymer across the exteriors, sealing microfractures in the alloy plating. Each panel hissed as it swollen, with reactive resin, closing pinpricks before the acid-laden droplets could eat through. With 5 minutes to impact, Arya took a moment to look at her crew, exhausted but resolute, like soldiers standing guard over the only salvation in a world gone mad. She steadied herself with a deep breath. "Remember, we don't just survive this. We stabilize. We learn." The first thunderclap rattled the ground as lightning lanced the sky. Arya darted between power conduits, recalibrating the field emitters. Her suit's HUD glowed red with overload warnings. Every step was an exercise in calculated risk. Lose control of the pulse coils, and the bubble would implode inward, crushing the camp under its own energy. Then came the tremors. Violent, disorienting shudders that snapped pylons from their mounts. A biofarm module cracked open, its nutrient gel splashing onto the ground in phosphorescent waves. At the edge of her vision, Dr. May dived forward to seal the breach, teeth gritted against the stench of chemical spray. "Patch it," Arya shouted, grabbing a coil's control panel. She twisted knobs to modulate the frequency, watching the storm shield's waveform smooth out on the graph. The wind screamed like a living beast, whipping isotropic sand through the mesh and battering the domes. Suddenly, the auxiliary coil on the eastern quadrant shorted with a blinding arc. The field collapsed there, and one of the hydroponic domes groaned as lightning struck it directly. For a heartbeat, panic flared in Arya's chest. Then she saw Sato sprint toward the ruptured coil, plasma torch in hand. Without hesitation, she followed. The air burned around them, and the coil's magnetic field dragged debris toward its core. Sato ignited the torch, slicing through a twisted support beam. Arya crouched behind a reinforced bulkhead, pressing a manual override. Power bled from the damaged coil into a secondary conduit, and the shimmering bubble on that side flared back to life. Drenched in sweat and dust, Sato slumped against the wall. "Got it," he panted. Arya extended a hand to help him up. "Never doubt you." She checked her chronometer. 2 minutes remained before the storm's full fury. Back at the command hub, Roshan's team held the perimeter. Arya keyed her comm to broadcast a calm voice to the camp. "Shields are holding. Stay inside, hunker down, and secure yourselves. I'll update when we reach Phase 2. In the command dome's panoramic viewport, the storm rolled in like a living mountain, electric veins pulsating across its face. Despite the raging chaos, Arya felt a strange clarity. This was what she'd trained for, the moment when theory met raw, unrestrained nature. The magnetostorm hit with the force of 1,000 suns. The dome shuddered, its frame groaned under the magnetic pressure. But the shields held. Lightning struck and dispersed. Acid rain sluiced down the curved panels, dissolving nothing behind, the protective field. After nearly an hour, the voltage began to ebb. The tremors softened into distant rumbles. Slowly the sky cleared to reveal the battered but unbroken camp. Arya stepped outside, helmet off, letting the cool night air wash over her. The domes glowed softly in the moonlight, their once pristine surfaces pocked and scorched, but still, standing. Lieutenant Roshan approached, offering her a flask of nutrient gel. "History in the making, Captain." Arya took a careful sip and let herself smile. "We just taught Apex a lesson. Human will can rival the fiercest storms." She looked toward the horizon, where dozens of tiny probes would soon comb the territory, cataloging every nuance of the planet's defenses. And tomorrow, we begin to understand it. Under the watchful eyes of the now quiet storm coils, campfires flickered in the red dust, and with them the first true heartbeat of human presence in the Apex territory. A pale dawn light filtered through the domes, painting the camp's corridors in soft amber. Arya Vale moved through the hydroponics wing with purpose, her steps echoing on metal grating. Over the past months, the camp had thrived. Algae vats, brimmed with oxygen-producing blooms, and the moss terraces had spread into a living carpet beyond the shields. Yet Arya's instincts hummed with unease. The enigmatic transmissions, bursts of patterned tones and numbers, had grown more frequent, and tonight she vowed she would follow them to their source. Under the cover of dusk, Arya assembled a small strike team. Lieutenant Roshan, geared in scout armor, xenobiologist Dr. May, carrying portable analysis scanners, and 2 explorers, each armed with magnetic pulse rifles calibrated for non-lethal discharges. They left the domes by a side hatch and headed east, where a network of crystalline spires pierced the scarlet dunes. The spires gleamed like facets of a broken diamond, their surfaces etched with luminescent glyphs that pulsed in cadence with the signals. As they approached, the ground trembled beneath Arya's boots, a low, resonant vibration that seemed to emanate from the spires themselves. Dr. May knelt beside the nearest pillar, sweeping it with her scanner. "These crystals, they're piezoelectric. Pressure changes generate both power and those transmissions." She pointed to the glyphs, curves and angles shifting before their eyes, as if alive. "We should map them," Arya whispered, "but keep alert." At that moment, the largest spire split inward like a blooming flower, revealing a cavernous chamber within. Pale light spilled out, illuminating a figure draped in metallic filaments. An apex sentinel, its form both insectoid and humanoid. Its eyes glowed with cobalt intelligence. "Intruder detected," it intoned in a voice that rumbled through the dunes, synthesized from multiple tones. The strike team froze, rifles raised. Arya advanced slowly, palms open. "I am Captain Arya Vale of the Laken Colony. We seek knowledge, not conflict." The sentinel tilted its head. A cascade of glyphs rippled across its carapace, translating into a series of soft tonal notes. Dr. May's scanner flickered. This was language, layered and complex, but unmistakably an invitation. For a tense moment, Nothing happened. Then, the sentinel withdrew a crystalline shard from its side and extended it toward Arya. The shard glowed with phosphorescent veins. Arya recognized the gesture. Communication, an offering of exchange. Lieutenant Roshan relaxed his rifle. "Captain, it's peaceful." Arya touched the shard gently. Images flooded her mind. Visions of an ancient civilization, of worlds conquered then abandoned, of a repository of knowledge meant to endure beyond extinction. The Sentinel's purpose was guardianship. It protected the archive, tested every visitor for intent. As the first stars appeared overhead, Arya knelt before the Sentinel. "We wish to learn and to preserve," she said. The glyphs on the spire blazed and a hush fell over the desert. In that moment of silent truce, Arya realized the true treasure of the Apex territory, not its harsh elements, but the legacy locked within its crystal heart. And with the Sentinel as their guide, the camp would unlock secrets that could change the fate of humanity itself. A week had passed since the Sentinel's first greeting, and the camp pulsed with renewed purpose. Under Arya Vale's direction, and guided by the crystalline shards and coded schematics, the team had erected a fifth dome around the largest spire, linking their own habitat network to the Sentinel's power grid. At dawn, golden light danced through the crystal facets, refracting into the command hub in kaleidoscopic patterns. Arya stood atop the central observatory balcony, overlooking the transformed landscape. Where once there had been only red dust and jagged glass spires, now swayed terraces of engineered flora, hardy ferns that thrived in low light, nitrogen-fixing lichens carpeting the dunes, and rows of bioluminescent vines that wound around the spires like living lanterns. The hydroponics dome flickered with new growth, ancient grain strains resurrected from the Sentinel's archives, their kernels rich in protein and resistant to acid rains. Below, the camp's inhabitants moved with confident purpose. Dr. May led student researchers into the crystal chamber, their scanners mapping fractal inscriptions that detailed centuries of ecological data. Sato and his engineering corps tuned the spire's piezoelectric plates, channeling excess energy into the camp's power grid, and Roshan oversaw patrols that monitored the once hostile crustaceans, now managed in a sprawling open bioresearch pen where their life cycles were studied rather than feared. Arya descended into the chamber, the Sentinel's presence a silent affirmation at her side. Its multifaceted eyes reflected the shifting glyphs etched into the walls. Language made tangible. She placed her hand on the shard it had offered, feeling a resonance that transcended mere electricity, a heartbeat of collective memory. "Today," she announced to the gathered colonists, "we open the Apex archive to humanity." She gestured to the crystalline console that bridged Sentinel and human technologies. With a gentle click, the pantheon of ancestral knowledge flickered to life. Holographic star charts of lost worlds, genetic blueprints for extinct flora, translations of 1,000 extinct languages. A murmur ran through the crowd. For the first time, every person felt it, the weight and wonder of this shared legacy. Children pointed at the swirling light show. Historians wept at recovered chronologies. Engineers leaned forward, already dreaming of new applications. Arya met the Sentinel's gaze, and in its silent accord they sealed an alliance older than any recorded treaty. The electromagnetic coils around the camp hummed in harmony with the spire's crystal lattice, a symphony of human grit and alien precision. As the second storm of the season gathered on the horizon, its violet arcs softer now in the presence of the field, the camp's lights burned steady and bright. No longer mere survivors, the colonists here were guardians of knowledge, stewards of a bridge between past and future. Arya Vale looked out at the red plains and smiled. "They said no human could survive the Apex territory," she whispered. "But here, we have built more than shelter. We have built a home, and a promise for all who come after." Beneath twin moons and silent watchers of crystal light, the first true Apex camp stood unbowed, a testament to human will and the enduring spark of discovery.